Hi there. Today I am going to show you a complete setup of a new project in Trakr to help you get started with visual testing. And the purpose of this video is just to give you some guidance tips on how to best set up the project so that when you're performing your testing, you're going to encounter the least amount of false positives and having a good testing experience. So let's get started. I have an example website here. This is a website of a digital agency. So this website is a mix of static contents as well as dynamic contents. So to understand, this website a little bit more, we can see, for example, there is different language versions of this website. So they're global. There's a Danish version, um, a German version, et cetera, which could make testing a little bit more complex than we want. And also, there are other things like little widgets for help, and then, there's also, some other dynamic elements here and there. So to first set up the site, obviously, I'm going to just copy and paste the URL when I'm creating a new website project on Trakr. And usually what happens is you might be presented with the option to load the URLs from the sitemap or scan URL. Normally, I would try to load the URLs from the sitemap because there's a sitemap for this website. But as I try to load it, I see that the sitemap is actually quite large. So I get, a huge amount of URLs on this website. And some of those URLs might be, might be important for your testing purposes. Some might not be, but in any case, this looks like a lot. So usually when this happens, when the sitemap contains just, a hodgepodge of different URLs, I try to use the default option to scan the URL. And what that does, as we see, is give us a little bit cleaner list of URLs that we scan from the site. And most of these are going to be your main landing pages. Normally you could just start from here. That would be the list of URLs that you test on this website. But I will go a little bit further as we see there's some URLs that might actually not make any difference or just be duplicated, like this, hashtag. I'm gonna get rid of that. This other one, the same thing. Um, and then, I see that I also have those kind of URLs that are actually the different language version of that website. So if I hit this one, I'm actually on the homepage of the Danish version of the website because it's structured in the subdirectory. So I don't want these as well. Um, and then, realistically speaking, I could keep the rest of it, but just for the sake of making this a little bit simpler and just testing the main landing pages, I will also just get rid of some of these other back pages. So there we go. I'm just gonna keep it simple. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. And then for my device breakpoints, normally for a pretty static site or somewhat static site, we would choose 3, even though you can choose 4. But I would choose, for example, a mobile, a tablet, a desktop, and then, if you sometimes want, you can choose a very large desktop resolution. So I'll create a project. Now, usually, from this point on, you can actually start creating collections and start doing testing with the single environment, et cetera, et cetera. All good. And then, we can do that. And I have an example of a project that I did create of this exact same website previously. And as we can see, if I just created a project and then start taking the screenshot, snapshot uh, of the website, there's a few things we might notice. One is that I get, some stuff like um, this cookie disclaimer, and this is because on our on Trakr, we don't keep a browser history. Therefore, every site, every page project that we're going to see things like any type of disclaimer or, any type of chat agents and some of the other things that might be distracting from part of your visual testing. So that would be the first part of, additional setup that we can do to remove these things. And then, I will put a link to the documentation on how to do that more thoroughly as well. But essentially, I would just go to the site and then, take a look at. I'll take a look at some of the elements like this chat agent here, and then I will use again. I'm using Google Chrome, and there's this extension called Get Unique CSS Selector extension. I will use this to try to find out, what is this element, and then I will copy that into my project settings, and then under screenshot, I will want to remove that. So this is just called a drift widget. So I will do that. I will want to remove that from part of my screenshot. I will save that. That will be part of my project setting even before I take my first screenshot collection. And sometimes you might take your first screenshot collection and you realize there are things that you want to remove, and that's okay too. So you can, add those settings after you've taken that first one. Um, Another area of this is, again, I'm going to go back to this previous one I took. There are some sections of the site that we want to test, for example, the blog pages. And the blog pages, they have content, every couple weeks, they will be updated. So those are some, dynamic content areas here in this blog page. There could be some dynamic content areas that are, for example, on the resources page. So, there are this kind of featured things here that might also be dynamic or personalized. That means that, every time we take a screenshot and then try to do tests, that we're going to see some changes on those areas. So we also, don't want we don't want to test these areas as well. Same thing with, for example, upcoming events. We probably don't want to test that area either. Um, but unlike the cookie disclaimer and then the this kind of chat agent widget where we just completely remove them from our screenshots, for these other areas, we do something slightly different. So, for example, if we wanted to um, just not test this whole section of blog posts, then what I would do too again is using my Google Chrome extension, try to find this little piece of area, try to get that selector, copy it into my project settings. And under the screenshot section, instead of remove elements, I want to put it under mask elements. And what that does is it will mask the area, will allow us to continue testing the rest of that page. Great. All right. So, once we configure some of these project settings, and then, you go back and take the screenshots, and I'm going to use the one I've taken previously. Once you have configured these, so let me show you the complete configuration that I have. So I have, removing this cookie dialog, cookie disclaimer, removing that chat widget, and then masking a number of elements. And then when I take a screenshot with these settings, what I will end up getting is, something that looks like this is a complete screenshot that doesn't have any cookie disclaimer, that doesn't have the chat widget, which is good, it's clean. And then at the same time, if we go to the blog post page, this whole blog post listing section is blocked off, it's masked from our testing process, but we can still test that page. And same thing with this other page where this resources page where we actually um, blocked off the event section and some of the other section where those elements are more dynamic. So with this additional setup, you're going to be able to take better screenshots, snapshots of your web project, as well as get less um, just testing false positive, just because there's a lot of dynamic contents and other type of visual distractions. So um, that is it, and hopefully this is helpful.